and welcome to another episode of Tea Talks, being sponsored by Black Educators in Dubai, which we call Be in Dubai. If you haven't noticed yet, we've already done a number of episodes, and I'm here today to bring you, once again, a great topic that we want to dive into, especially if you're looking to moving out here to the Dubai area to teach, or even the UAE. This is one of those episodes that's pretty much universal if I talk about it. My name is Jes'ka Washington. I am your host of today's show and all the series that we're doing. And I am so excited to have two more guest panelists with me. So please give us your name and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Omolade. I'm from Brooklyn, New York.
Yes.
And I'm Mekyah, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
Definitely. So, first and foremost, when we talk about money, we already are coming from two different Mekyahs. So
money Mekyahs.
Money Mekyahs. So we're really giving that kind of talk today. And yes, we're going to talk about money. Yes. Money. You haven't hit the last one.
I would have been there right there with you.
So definitely talking about what it takes to come out here. So before we even dive into the conversation, we're also talking not only to two different East Coast, down south, but we're also talking about how long have you been out here?
6 years.
6 years. So you've also seen the transition of education and where it's trying to go. And you are here.
8 months now.
8 months. You're about to finish birthing your experience here in Dubai. So the very first thing is, let's be honest. And I want to start off with this blanket question that we're not going to be able to answer.
Okay.
And that question is, how much does it cost to move to Dubai? It's a big question.
Yeah.
So then I will say the first thing is what expenses did you have to come out of pocket for that you did not count for at first?
Okay, so when I know we're not talking about packages,
right,
and salary, but it does depend on your package, especially in terms of housing, and what the expectation is for that. For me, I had to find my own housing.
Wait a minute. When you first got here the first time, that is serious. That is a very different.
It is, and I was given no support.
Wow.
I had to find my own, because at the time. So now the trend is a building is bought by one, is either maintained by the developer or is bought by one entity or by one school. There's some buildings in this area where one school system or district or school group buys the building and then puts all its teachers in the building. Or even if you're looking for a place and you can go in and there's a real estate agent assigned to the building. But you don't know that until, like, you don't know where to go. You don't know, my original school, it was in Sharjah, but I knew that I wanted to live in Dubai because I had some friends who were here already, and even though they were in Abu Dhabi, they knew they had already been here for a couple of years and knew the lay of the land in terms of like the Emirates and what would be allowed where. In terms of things like that. So I was advised, okay, your school is in Sharjah, but it's right at the border, so you may want to look at living at the top of Dubai, like the Murdiff area. And that's where I was looking at first. And so you go, it's just really like moving to a new place and knowing no one and nothing.
Right.
And then you add on the element of everybody is trying to speak English, but it's not everybody's mother tongue. And there's different ways of handling business and different ways of communicating needs and expectations. And so I found myself just kind of shooting in the dark.
Right.
And so I was able to find an apartment in Murdiff. I put a contract on. So then you get to the place where, okay, if your employer if your employer's name goes in the contract versus whether it's your name that's an independent contract. And at the time, there were a lot of agents who were adverse to giving you a contract under your employer's name, under the school's name, because they were afraid that, the school is too big, they have too much money, if something goes wrong, they will win and we will lose money. So I was having to find someone who would be willing to rent also the number of checks that they would receive.
Yes, that's a new thing out there.
So what you don't anticipate, what no one tells you, is that you're not paying rent month to month.
No.
They do it in number of checks. So you can either pay in one big check which I did 1 year, and I would not advise if you don't have stuff saved up.
Okay.
Because what happens is you end up taking out a loan to pay it off, and then you pay back the loan, but that ends up being much more expensive than if you receive the housing allowance and then you just ration it off month to month and save it up and then just pay, you know, the checks as they're, because you have to pre-write the checks.
Right.
So you have to find someone who's willing to rent to you for at least 4 checks, because that's the largest amount of checks that they will
And the 4 checks
receive.
is basically the
4 quarters.
Yes,
So
4
each
quarters.
check is 3 months worth of rent. And so what I do now is my housing allowance is in my monthly salary. So they break it up into 12 months. And so I get, you know, 1/12 of it every month. And then I just set aside whatever, you know, 1 month of my rent would be. And then by the time the 3rd month comes, I'll have the 2 months set aside, and then that 3rd month, and then everything is in my checking account for when the check hits. Because when you sign your contract, you pre-write all of those checks.
Right. Wow.
So they're gonna get deposited regardless. And you just have to make sure that you have the money in there. So, since I've been in there, in my apartment, I haven't moved. My apartment was bought out.
Okay.
So my landlord changed, because originally it was privately owned.
Okay.
So a person bought the apartment, and then they were kind of using basically the real estate agent as a properties manager to facilitate finding someone to rent it. But I was writing the checks to that person, and then the whole building got bought out. And so now I write my check to the company, but with that comes extra fees. So now I pay like a yearly maintenance fee, which is probably going to administrative costs and things like that, because, you know, we have maintenance workers and we have security and all that kind of stuff. So those were some of the costs now. But back to your original question, when I went in, when I was looking for the apartment, all of it said unfurnished.
Yes.
Now, coming from the States, you think unfurnished means I just got to find a couch and a bed and some lamps and, you know, and to just to furnish my apartment. But you expect a stove, a fridge, right? Nope.
Wow.
When they say
Yes.
unfurnished, they mean
nothing.
unfurnished.
It
The
is
only thing
bare.
you get is the countertops, the floor, the walls, and the toilets and sinks.
Yes.
Everything else, if there's anything in my apartment that's not bolted to the ground, I bought it.
Wow.
And
So I
that's
had to buy my
big-
refrigerator. And that's something that I was not expecting at all. So that's an out. So you have to buy your stove. You have to buy your fridge. And those were 2 big costs. Your washer and dryer.
Yes.
Sometimes the apartment comes now. Most apartments that are being built now come with the washer and dryer, but mine did not. So I had to buy a washer and dryer. I think in Abu Dhabi, you have to pay for like a chiller, like the AC.
Yes, the chiller.
The chiller.
Yes.
They have to pay for the AC. And then just setting everything up, just deposits.
Yes.
Right. So sometimes you're given a relocation allowance by your employer. Sometimes you're not. If you're not, bless your heart, because that money that I did get, I had to put a deposit down to rent the apartment. I had to put a deposit down for Etisalat, for my phone and my cable. You have to put a deposit down for, if you have a chiller in Abu Dhabi, you have to put a deposit down for that. You have to put a deposit down for DWA, for your electricity and all that stuff. So deposits, and those are, I think the deposit for the apartment was like 4,000 dirhams, which is about $1,500 or so. And then, so from 1,000, which is about $297, $300 to about 4,000, 5,000.
Right.
And if you're with a family and you have a villa, then I've heard that those deposits are insane. Deposits, because then another thing is, if you have a villa, you pay more. Your deposit is more based on the area that you're in. So that's another thing, that if you have a family and you're looking to rent a villa, you have that, like my deposit might not be the same as yours.
Yes.
We might both have the same size, but if it's in a different area, then like if I'm in a more desirable area, then my deposit or whatever I'm paying is going to be higher. Not maybe, going to be.
So let's look at this now, like in 2 different ways, because I like that. And what you said about housing is very true. And there is a move, not necessarily yet in Dubai, but in Abu Dhabi, different places, to just give people the stipend and allow them to now look for their apartments, where it used to be that they get in the apartments. So that's great information for if you're in a situation and you're looking and you need to get your own apartment. That is a whole different way to look at things, and you have to be able to make sure those things are done. But we also still have some people that get their apartment furnished. And it comes in with part of their package.
Yeah.
So then I would say, kind of after we listened to this story,
Yeah.
first of all, I was like, whew, okay.
Right.
Ooh, I had to worry about Wi-Fi.
That's it.
And eating. That was the big,
Like it was so bad because my original contract fell through, and so I was back at zero. And then and my employer was putting us up in the hotels until we found a place, but they had a deadline. But we weren't given any support, and so the deadline was approaching.
and probably still working.
Oh yes, oh yes. So that's the other thing. Thank you, because I'm looking for an apartment. I have nowhere to live, and it's the first day of school, and I'm in a new country.
Yeah.
And
Probably don't have a phone.
Yeah.
and let's talk about renting a car
Yes.
and a phone
Yeah.
Yes.
and like all of that.
Yeah.
And so all of that is happening at the same time. That's why I know, like, if I ever need to start from scratch again, I can absolutely start from scratch,
Yeah.
like with nothing.
Yeah.
Because that's literally, you come here with like your suitcases.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're not given an apartment,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's talk about when you were, so you were given an apartment.
Yeah, thankfully, an apartment did come furnished. It did have the refrigerator. It did
But you
have
look
the
at it like,
It did have those things. And also, I came not from the U.S., but from another country as
Okay.
well. So I did 2 international moves in less than 10 months.
wow.
So in terms of expense, I feel like I've definitely spent a lot of money in this process. And before you decide to move overseas, you incur considerable expenses because
Yes.
most countries you apply for the visa at the embassy of the country that you're going to. You have to get your degrees attested.
The attestation is no
yes,
joke.
no joke.
No
And there are companies usually, this person does it cheaper, that person does it cheaper. It's gonna cost you.
It's gonna cost you regardless.
I'm gonna say, I will say this for me. I paid expensive money for attestations, and I have no problem with it. I am so happy because I did not have the stress. Because there is,
Yeah.
but for everybody, it's each its own. I do think that you need to figure out what you need to do and can do.
The key though is to know that you have to have those things attested beforehand. Because if I think the cheaper thing to do is to get all that done before you come.
Yes.
But you don't know that you have to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
Until
for
you're
me,
out.
like 6 years ago, no one was asking for that, for attested degree.
Yes.
And now that they're trying to, get things to be more, make sure that their teachers are credentialed and qualified, now they're wanting that paperwork. So now you're over here needing to get a stamp from the state.
Yes,
So now you have to, that's the cost, because you have to send it back.
Right.
And if you're using a third party company, you're paying them to do that.
For you,
To do it for you. So that's the cost.
I will say that because now, if you're going to get ahead of it, for me, I did all attestation on U.S. soil, so I had no problem here. I had no problem of trying to figure that out. It is a frustration to have to try to do your attestations
over here
and trying to communicate with somebody back home.
Yes.
And I do think that there's the piece where I can call my mama. Mama don't know how to
do it.
Like, first of all, you asking your mama to do a lot, and she just got on the Facebook.
Listen, on the face snap. Yes, on the snap grid.
It's funny you mention that because I did it both ways. Because when I was in the States, I was going to China and I was able to do everything there. And then I was over here. China lost all of my original documents, degrees and birth certificates and whatnot.
No.
Luckily, I scanned everything to email, or everything I was attached to scanned to email. And again, a third-party company was able to attest everything, so I could bring my stuff over here without any issue. But yeah, for those people that are considering how much is attestation, a couple of hundred, right?
Yours was like I said, for me, I paid. I want to say I was around 700, but no, because I had to get 2 degrees, and it was also because of my location, and it was a couple of things, and I understood. My person worked with me, and I chose. There's a company a lot of people go through, and it's ProX. I did not go because the thing is the person who did the attestation was in the same city as me. And so I didn't want to make telephone calls. And for me, honestly, personal information, I had the broken foot. So I knew I could not do any legwork. So, but for me, I know I paid. But once again, even though I probably paid the higher cost, to this day, happy. Happy.
Yeah.
Because I've got people driving and then the office is closed.
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And it's difficult when you don't know what to ask for, because when you're moving, you don't need to have anything attested when you're working in the country in which you work credentials. So all of that is also new to you, just as like part of your knowledge base, And so when you're asking me to have something attested, what does that even mean? How many stamps do I need? So I didn't know. For example, I thought the one stamp I got in the U.S., which I did do before I left, was enough. No, you have to get a stamp from this country, but you have to. You have to get it. You have to take it to the U.S. embassy, so they can then give it to the UAE embassy, so that they can stamp that. It's child. And then, but you don't even know what to ask for.
And there's like a certification that I had to pay for to prove that my university was real before I could even get. And so what I say, and I'm saying all this to say, is that not every country's attestation documents are the same. And if I remember correctly, for us, we did not have to get our teacher certificates attested.
No. Oh, okay.
No, you don't have to get your teaching certificate.
Just your highest degree.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
So, and I've known other countries where it's everything is attested, like your transcripts and everything like that. So the thing that I would say here is that you need to pay attention to the requirements to make sure that you're getting the right things attested, because that's an ugly position to be in.
And that goes to the category of things you don't know that you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, because there are a lot that's an experience here.
Yes.
There's a lot of things just in the way things work. If that's not your normal, if you're not used to working outside the country, there's a whole world that you don't know about. You don't know that you don't know.
Right. Exactly. That's why you hear stories of people. I just threw everything into my suitcase and I went overseas. Good for you.
Yes.
But I'm a planner and I need to know how much money I need to bring with me. Not getting paid maybe for the first month.
Yes. Let's stop. Okay. Not getting paid to win.
Maybe you get your paycheck. Okay, so in the States it's by monthly. You have to get used to a monthly paycheck.
Monthly paycheck, as well as. And
I always had a monthly paycheck in my
it depends on the city, because I moved around in the States.
Yeah,
and
so
there
that
was
was
a place I had a monthly.
Okay.
But what I'm going to say, as well as, you have to understand payrolling and processing. And depending on the date that you come, you're probably not going to see, and I'm going to say that August or September check. You're probably not going to see a check. If you're coming at the beginning of the year, if you're coming in and you're starting August 28th, your first check is going to be October 1st. Yeah. There is no conspiracy theory. This is not how they treat Americans.
It's just how it is.
It is paper.
And it also depends on where in every school I've been to, I can say every, like I've been to, it's 3. But in all 3, your pay check you get on the last day of the month. And so the last day of the month. So, but my current school, they give you. So if you're returning, you get your June check, your July check, and the first part of August before you leave.
Yes.
So like my June, I'm gonna get like 4 different deposits. I'm gonna feel really, really rich. And if you're not careful, but that's not current money. That's future money.
Yeah, future money.
So you take your one picture,
right, and then put that in the bank.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're gonna need that, for July and then half of August, and then when you come back, you get the other half of August at the end of August. Yeah. And so new teachers who come in do get like a week and a half or 2 weeks of pay at the end of August. But I think that's an anomaly. I don't think that's current, like common practice. Yeah. But there are situations.
No, that's me.
There are situations where you may get a little piece of change, but prepare for not getting your check until the end of September. Prepare for not getting paid at all, because this year in Abu Dhabi, there were instances, they're doing that whole transition. There were instances where people, it was October, November, and never got paid.
Yeah. You need to.
So you just need to. Yeah, you need to come with at least a bare minimum a month's salary of what you were used to getting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then if you can make it work as many months as possible, because you just never know what's going to happen.
That's very
true. And then I was going to say the one piece, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off, but you just said bank, and I think one of I didn't realize is that you can't open a bank here without the visa.
Without the visa.
And it was you, because this is a sad story, but we can say it now. I called her crying because I had to send money to the U.S.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I had to send money to the U.S. because I had all my bills hitting, and I couldn't send Western Union because I didn't have an ID. So I had to send it underneath her name to pick up. And it was just like, so having to navigate those things. So those are things to prepare. If you have bills that you're paying in the
If you
state,
still have financial obligations back home,
you might want to stack that piece because getting the money back home
can be difficult initially.
And it is going to be a money transfer, which is going to hit you. So
absolutely.
And that again depends on your employer. So for me, luckily, I was my first school was within a system that was run by like a well-run machine. So they had all of those policies and practices in place. So getting, there was during our orientation week, they literally gave us an envelope full of cash, which was our relocation fee, our relocation thing. And then like the next day we opened up bank accounts. Like there was people in charge of collecting your passports and getting your visa done and then, dropping them off. There was one time where I had to get my work visa renewed, but I was flying out. It was like a holiday break, so I was traveling, so I needed my passport like immediately. And like the driver drove to Abu Dhabi to pick it up and then drove it back, and I just had to stay at work like an extra 2 hours to make sure that. But so I was in a system that was, well established and well run, as opposed to if you're part of a school that's just like a single, so it's not part of a group,
right?
And everything is done just with the people there.
Yes.
You're gonna have frustration. It's just like having like your homegirl go and do it for you because it's just one person doing it for everyone in the school, and so that's going to be a much longer process.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned unexpected expenses, which I was going to bring up. Yes, bring in a month's salary, but then also try to plan for things that can go wrong. So I was very sick. I got ill, and I was out of work for a month because I was so sick. And one thing my insurance was not activated yet. And so here in Dubai, there's no pay us after you get well. You pay. They literally handed me a card machine while I was on the verge of getting antibiotics. And until that kicked in, that was a considerable expense. I had to pay everything out of pocket. The doctor's office $600, antibiotics $250, and it was a very unexpected expense. No one expects to get sick. You're overseas. You're in a new country, and you're just trying to navigate your health.
You don't think about getting sick.
You don't
think about.
You might think, I'm gonna get a cold.
Right? Maybe. But let me make sure. But you think that's gonna be like a self. I could just go to the grocery store and get me, some of this and some of that. At most, I'll have to go to the drugstore and get like some Advil or a Tylenol PM or whatever. You don't really think about what happens if I really get sick. At the hospital, navigating hospital stays.
So one thing I would say is, because we're going to be closing up pretty soon, is that I know a lot of people come out here to close down debt. They really do. But if you could come with an empty credit card, just to cover you for anything at that point, because they'll take a credit card.
I did.
Every one of them. Your money is good
here.
Yes, it is.
Not a problem. But to be able to turn around and have that, because it was the little things like eating and all those things. And you don't know if you have a network. That's one reason why we are doing this video, so you can have a network. Because baby, we came together. It was like, you got spaghetti, I got sauce.
We got a potluck.
We gonna do this right here. And you don't know your way around. You don't know which grocery stores actually have the better bargains. Getting to them because somebody gave me an address and I spent a taxi and went to the wrong location.
Yes, getting around those taxi fares.
Transportation is easy and it's around, but you don't realize
but it's a cost. It's a cost.
And then we're in a suburb. We're not in
the city.
So it makes a difference. But this, first of all, I'm going to say that we're closing down this conversation, and I hate it. That's what I'm saying. If I ever get a donation button, this is when you're supposed to donate and be like, no, we need more, because I can only afford 25 minutes at a time. Money. But I will say that this really breaks into our salary, which is going to be another episode, and it breaks down into even more. So I just really think that this is a chance for us to get together and talk again about this.
Yeah, I would just say really talk to your employer, like whoever is in charge, whoever is your representative for your onboarding. Really get as much clarity as you can especially if you're given an apartment.
Yes.
If you're given an apartment, that totally reduces a lot of your outgoing expense. But you still also have to be clear about how long will it be until you get your paycheck? How long will it be until you get your health insurance?
Yes.
Like, because that's important, because, you know, if I do get sick, because I did get sick my third day here, because I have a very sensitive tummy and just something went wrong. And so I did have to go to the hospital. But at that point, they had already processed a lot of our stuff. So I had insurance.
Wow.
I had insurance. Had I not, it would have been much more expensive.
Yes.
So see if you can get clear on like when you're going to get these things, so you can kind of like ration that out, and also think about the cost of transportation.
Yes.
Because you can't do any of those things until you have your work visa, and so you can't get a license, you can't rent a car, you can't do any of that stuff until you get your work permit and your visa. And so you're doing taxis all the time. So research wherever you are, like what is the average taxi fare? See if you can see if your school can tell you, or your employer can tell you where in what location or what area you'll be living. So maybe you can go on Google Earth and see like the proximity, distance, and so you can kind of get a gauge of how much you'd be spending to do certain things and get to certain places. Just things like that. If you can get with your employer to get as much information as possible beforehand, it gives you a better idea of what you'll have to navigate.
Not only the employer, but that's why we're here. If you can find someone and just give you the information for knowledge, just for knowledge, and that's it, because you just want to kind of have as much knowledge as possible. And speaking of knowledge, that's why we come together with the tea, because it's all a bunch of spices put together with knowledge. And whenever you have knowledge, there's always power.